Editing on the human genome is a topic that has been debated for decades. However, there is no clear right answer. So people from many different walks of life have come up with many different opinions as to what should be done. Furthermore, with the invention of the relatively new CRISPR technology, the debate has become even more complicated. The question arises, should we experiment on the human genome? Now, the problem with this question is that even if you asked 1 million different people, you would probably get 1 million different responses. But looking at this from a narrow perspective, using the ethical and social cultural lenses, it is clear that genetic editing should not be continued. With the possible side effects still being unclear, the risks and consequences are far too high to pursue further study. In 2010, when this technology was first introduced, CRISPR-Cas9 began to sweep throughout laboratories throughout the world. With its ability to make incredibly small and precise edits, it has the potential to become revolutionary in the curing of disease. However, some people have some ethical qualms with this new technology. People are beginning to wonder whether we should be tampering with human DNA in this way at all, while others think it's crucial. An example of CRISPR at work comes from Zhang He in China. In 2018, he registered for an HIV vaccine trial. However, this was a ruse for what was really happening, the implantation of genetically modified embryos. When society found out what He was actually doing, they were astounded at the possibility of even implanting genetically modified embryos. So imagine their surprise when a few days later, they found out that the babies had already been born. Now, there are many ethical problems with the way this trial was run, but what is important to focus on is the research itself. A number of people fear there is no way to safely run this experiment for both the embryo and the person it will become in the future. This fear is majorly contributed to the concept of off-target mutations, or an unintended edit in the genome. If a baby is born with an off-target mutation, the chances of it developing cancer or another kind of disease are much higher. But the ethics of CRISPR aren't the only problem. Paul Knopfler also voices many societal concerns. He brings up the concept of designer babies, or babies that have been modified to have a lower risk of disease or higher chances of higher looks, intelligence, or talents. He also forms a sort of chasm between those that are naturals and those with upgrades. Now, with the possibility of having a portion of the population without modifications and a portion with them in the near future, it is important to assess what this means for society as a whole. This technology, even after some time, will still be expensive enough that the majority of people will not be able to afford it. A class divide could arise between those that can afford the technology and those that cannot. There's also the chance that there will be a distinction between the children themselves. Knopfler brought up that those with higher intelligences might need to go to special schools. If this occurs, marginalization could become a problem between those of higher classes that could afford the technology and those that could not. But that isn't the only side to the argument. In fact, a large number of people think that CRISPR is hugely beneficial. While this is important to consider, it does not justify in any way what scientists are doing right now, which is dismissing any repercussions and just making the decision for the rest of mankind. However, there is a clear solution. Global discussion must continue, but not just among the people that are actually doing the research. Otherwise, a compromise that works for the majority of the parties involved can never be reached. It is unlikely that a plan that can be made that completely works for everyone involved. But if a solution can be found that addresses the concerns while still allowing for progress, that will be the best option. It is widely evident that this is a hugely nuanced topic. Furthermore, it is not good enough to simply say that CRISPR should just be stopped no matter what, or that it should persist no matter what. Both sides must be accounted for. The risks right now far outweigh the benefits, but it could be somewhere completely different in less than a decade. For now, discussion remains the most important. If a conclusion can be reached peacefully without hurting either side, that would be ideal. But scientists can't be the only ones making the decisions, as they are not the only ones being affected. Everyone is being affected, and so everyone should play a key role in making this decision that is going to affect all of society and all of the world.
All right, thank you, Grace. Grace, how did you approach and synthesize the differing perspectives in order to reach your conclusion?
So as genetic editing is a topic with a lot of gray area, there are a lot of different opinions on it. So I chose to not ignore the topics that contradicted my statement, but say that those perspectives should be taken into consideration when making the final decision. And so I didn't go into them in depth because I wanted my research to be focused on my personal statement, but I had to address why they were still important.
Okay, thank you. What additional questions emerged from your research, and why are they important?
So some additional questions that emerged from my research were mostly centered around the scientific lens. I was really interested in the genetic editing experiments that have already been successful, especially in adults, because it really made me think about the progress that gene modification and CRISPR have already made.
Okay, thank you.